I was there. I don't have to listen to it.
This week's show because it was a disaster.
When you live in a beach resort, it's easy to forget whether you are playing or working. On each week's show, we settle in with a cocktail and try to figure out if there is a difference. This is Day Drinking on Delmarva.
I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Russo, no relation, and looking exactly the way you would not think. If you're a person who's only read, for example, what I've written, and then you see how I look today, you'd be like, nah, it's not even close.
Yeah.
I've been trapped in the house for a while. My hair got too long. I put on a Born in the USA bandana, and I forgot about it until I called Todd, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm going with it. I'm doing the old hippie thing today.
I think I always think that you should lean into your look. You've just like you have a unique writing style. You have a unique long hair, scruffy writer look.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You can tell that I'm not successful because my hair is like this. Like I don't know. Let's think of like Neil Gaiman has wild hair, but he spends money on it and it looks good. Stephen King has shitty hair.
There you go.
Maybe that's what we'll call the episode. Stephen King has shitty hair too. Much to get to this week. Almost don't know where to start. But before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are a local business, as well as the drinks we are drinking. And I'm on water today because I've been on the phone all day and I haven't really. I wonder what it's. I don't know if I'm going to be able to feel my legs when I stand up at this point. It's been a long day behind the computer.
Well, my sponsored drink today is a bourbon, and because you were on the phone all day, I'm starting my second. So
good for you.
We'll see how this goes.
Each week, the sponsor this week is me. Kind of. So there was a time when I would promote my blog, or when I would promote my newsletter, or when I would promote my book. But I haven't done anything on any of those in such a long time that I forget the words to the song, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope, and I have every intention of getting a newsletter out next week. So anyway, if you want to follow the newsletter, it's abagelmanifesto.com. And of course, you should follow our newsletter because almost every week, when I don't forget to post the show, I listen to the show and I say to myself, if you listened to the show, you could write a really good blog post about it. But since you don't listen to the show until after everyone else has, you can't do that. So one of the things that I really would like to try to do, so I will encourage you, if you're a listener and have not subscribed to our newsletter, which is at daydrinkingondelmarva.substack.com, link in the show notes. You can hopefully find some nice little essays there. Like I wanted to do one on the Disneyfication of Worcester County last week.
Yep.
Just did not get to it.
There are still some unanswered questions there.
Go ahead. I don't know anything about it.
I don't have the answers there. But I did notice some friends who are teachers wearing the Disney logo that says Worcester instead of Disney. It looks like the castle. Mm-hmm. I know that logo has been co-opted for other like funny purposes. Like there's one that says Dundalk, which unanswered questions, as I said.
So the thing with like the Dundalk t-shirt and 78% of the illegal things that they sell in Ocean City is they're waiting for the cease and desist letter. Mm-hmm. So the plan is I'll sell as many of these as I can. I'll get a cease and desist letter. I'll sell what I have left. And hopefully before they sue me, I will have sold my last one and I won't make any more. It's what a lot of, honestly, beer companies do when they do these special can releases. We've talked about that before, where they're like, no, we're just going to steal this name and, make 1,000 cans, sell 1,000 cans. And then when they say cease and desist, you say, okay, I'll cease and I'll desist.
Yep.
I'm more into originality, which is what we were talking about. And I'm like, oh, I could have written a nice little essay about that had I listened to it last week instead of this morning when everyone else did, or yesterday morning,
Yesterday morning.
whenever I finally got it out. So please subscribe to the Day Drinking on Delmarva newsletter at least, because I really think I'm going to try to write on that more. I've just been so, I don't want to get too artsy about it, but I was talking about it this weekend with my sister-in-law who edited my book. Oh, I'm sorry. My book is really what I'm supposed to be plugging. It is Dragged into the Light, Truthers, Reptilians, Super Soldiers, and Death Inside an Online Cult by Tony Russo. If you're a listener and would like a free audio version, just email me by tonyrusso@gmail.com, BYTONYRUSSO @gmail.com. Happy to send you a copy of my quickly dwindling free audiobooks. If you like it, I would like it if you gave it a review on Amazon or any place, or just told a friend, said, hey, I listened to this book, you should listen to it or buy it or whatever.
Right.
But I was talking this weekend to my sister-in-law who helped me edit the book, and I have just been kind of paralyzed since it came out. I mean, I've been working on the war book, but as far as blogging, it's just felt so pointless. I have like 3 good blogs in my head about what's going on in Delmar, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when you feel like no one cares. But
it's probably a little bit of both, that people really don't care, but how much of it is that you feel like people don't care?
Well, we're in a part of history that I'm not prepared for. And that's the part of history where liking something on Twitter or Facebook counts as activism.
Right.
People feel like they've done something when they've said something nasty to President Biden or former President Trump or any of these assholes. They're like, oh, I really showed him. Now I'm going to go outside and, I don't know, burn some gasoline or whatever ineffectual things you're doing, rather than kind of changing the way the whole the Bagel Manifesto, which is where all of this started. The thesis of it, if you will, is, yes, things are getting shittier. Why don't you do something about it, or at least try to change your perception of how shitty things are? And that's not selling. What sells is, here's something you can say to own the MAGAs, or here's something you can say to really show those libs what's what. And it bores me. It's just goddamn boring. And I don't want to write that way. And if that means that I don't get to write, then that's okay with me.
Yeah. I would go so far as to say, even doing the opposite, and we've talked about this, and trying to just put pretty images with music out there, or showing people having a good time in a good light, which is what we do, has also been co-opted by the big social media, and is boring also. Like, if I'm making, because Instagram is forcing me to, I'm making the same video for one client that I am for a different client, vastly different images, but it's like the same
template,
regurgitated thing. And that's almost the point behind it, because other people are doing that also. So you're doing that version of it. And as you were saying, it's not original.
Yeah. And it's what it is it's the way it always is. It's just going to appeal to the people who are trying to make the most money by doing the least amount of work. And those are the people who continue to change the way the internet works. They just make it, more bland and dumber. And that way you can be bland and dumb and still not have to get a day job. And I mean, God bless you, but I don't want to play that anymore.
Right. That's why we're doing a podcast, and have for a decade.
We are podcast innovators, even though it's like us, Rogan, and what's his name, Mark Maron.
Mark Maron,
we're big true believers. Yeah. there are thousands, but I don't think there are tens of thousands. There
Yeah.
might be hundreds, there may be thousands. There are not
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people
Yeah.
who have committed to doing it, and there is no one like us who's committed to doing it and to being silent about it unless we're actually doing it.
Yes.
That's where we are innovators. We're waiting to be discovered. It's like we read the story about Fay Ray, sitting at the soda fountain, or whoever, a famous actress was discovered at a soda fountain, and we're like, okay,
Yeah.
we like soda. We're gonna go sit at a soda fountain.
For 10
That works.
years.
Yeah, that works. They'll
I-
show up every day. What if I wear a crazy bandana? Maybe people will come.
I fantasize that somehow, like all of those other things, in popularity and in the zeitgeist will somehow flare out, and it will be like our show that ends up in the National Archives long after we're dead. That is like, these two idiots.
I think one of the reasons that, if I can pat us on the back while I'm making fun of us, one of the reasons that we've been able to do it so long is because we don't do a lot of other stuff. So it's not a chore.
Yeah.
It's not I got to sit down and do this. Like, anything you have to do eventually becomes a chore. And
Right.
this has never been a chore. And when we're like, I don't fucking feel like it, then they're like, hey, I'm not feeling like it today. Okay.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to do.
Mhm.
But if I can find a way to start listening, I've stopped listening to many podcasts now just because I've
Mhm.
been so busy. But I today, for the 100th time in my life, literally the 100th time, I said, you really got to start listening to these shows and then writing about them, because I listen and I'm like inspired, and I'm like, you guys did a good job. And I'm like, well,
Right.
keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure you just whisper it out the window at midnight. Hey, listen to my show.
I mean, for my perspective too, I'm going to commit along with you, because I've been saying this about my other podcasts as well. That if I just listened to it, it would improve greatly. If I just did the bare minimum of prep, it would be great. Last week, I felt like we had a great little commercial about my business. I wanted you to have a good commercial about your business, because those are little snippets that we could just easily take out and put on social media, just to remind people that we have it, because that's all that social media is for, is to remind people that we do a podcast.
Right.
And
and that was because that's what I was. Because I'm sorry, did you listen to the show this week?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
But when you said it, I wrote it down.
Only because that's precisely, I was listening to the show, and I'm like, wow, A, this is pretty good, like, objectively.
Mhm.
And B, we could do a lot more talking about just your business, because A, we're real comfortable in it. I'm sorry. B.1, we're really comfortable with it. And then B.2, we like to do it, and we show how authentic we are.
Right.
When we talk about how social media is working here at the lower ends, when it's not, when you're not getting $10,000 a post, you can still do social media. So yeah, that's my commercial. The end.
Yeah. You're a great writer, Tony.
Thank you.
Somebody once, I'm gonna. It's probably I'm gonna substitute some words, but somebody once said to me, who listened to our podcast, said that Tony sounds like the older, smarter brother. But it was kind of that. But I think implied in older, smarter was also like, a little bit annoying, older brother. And I to me, that was a very endearing comment, and I think that your writing comes across that way as well. You can hear your voice. So if you like hearing Tony's voice, you can read his book, and it does come through.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Each week we talk about something that happened to us because we worked here or because we lived here. We call it One Cool Thing, and we're going to start with Todd's One Cool Thing for today.
Yes. Well, right before we went on the air, I mentioned a couple things that happened. We had Labor Day. We had a great week. We have some other stuff that's coming up. This is the transitional time of year.
Right.
Kids going back to school and that sort of thing. But recently I've noticed that it seems that Instagram thinks that I have ADD, or no, it's not even ADD anymore, is it? It's ADHD. So I'm getting all of these sponsored posts uh, from like accounts that are talking about and like showing tweets on it. It's like, oh, basically ADHD be like, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, that strikes a chord. And it got to the point where over the holiday we went up to see my parents, and I was very, I'm like, Mom, Dad, how come you never had me diagnosed properly? Because here I am, nearly 50 years old, and the internet machine has pretty much convinced me that I have this
Well,
affliction.
I've got good news for you. You may not have it, although you may want to see your doctor. I don't. This is long and complicated, and I'm about to offend everyone who has undiagnosed ADHD or undiagnosed ADD or undiagnosed HD or any of the
High definition
attention related.
behavioral. Yeah.
Right. So thing number one, as you may or may not recall from our marijuana episode, you don't work better when you're high.
Yeah.
That's an ADHD. Like if you can smoke pot and work, then you may have ADHD. Tell them the guy on the internet told you that.
Yeah. Okay.
But the other thing that I don't think we appreciate enough, and I'm glad you said it because now I'm going to use your example for the rest of my life. I don't think we appreciate how much mentalism is involved with all of the internet information gathering.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, mentalists are scam artists or telling jokes. Like, some people say, this is a trick. I'm not going to tell you how I do it, but I'm going to read your mind. Right. Some people say, I'm going to read your mind because I'm psychic, and they're liars.
Right.
When the internet knows as much about you as it does, it knows what words to appeal to you to make you think that it's your idea. And it's like, do you do this? Do you do that? And they're asking you, they fucking know what you do and what you don't do. You're on the internet. There's no question about what you do and don't do. They're like, okay, if this guy has this habits, these are the ads, you load them. I am so excited / fascinated / terrified to see what happens when Google turns off cookies to people like me who aren't like on Facebook, and I don't have it on my phone. Like, what if it goes? I don't know if I would be mad if it went back to the early internet days where it's like, well, you're either looking for porn or for food or for sewing equipment.
A new car.
Or a new car, so that'll be really, really interesting to see how a lot of shitty scammy websites are gonna just fall off the wayside. Digital advertising is getting more expensive because it's targeted, and
that's good, and it's well targeted
but those days are numbered for until everybody's in the metaverse, walking around in Facebook land, and then then they'll know what you're looking at.
Well, and part of me wonders if this is a more nefarious attempt, as we've been on the show and we've complained. I've been recently feeling very aggravated and frustrated, even as I mentioned earlier, with Reels and with Instagram, and the platform that I is basically the chosen platform of my profession right now. And if this is a way of them to be like, just kind of like, whispering in the back of it's like, you aren't worth shit.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with you.
You'll feel better if you buy something. Trust me.
Yes.
Yeah. So and again, I don't want to say that you don't have ADHD. You very well may. And, I think that if you're happy with your life, then that's fine. If you're not getting things like, my wife keeps saying that I have it, but I also think it's something that you're supposed to say to people, like, oh, you probably have something wrong with you. That way they don't tell you what's wrong with you. um, unbidden. But I have always been an airhead, and I've always been a daydreamer,
Yeah.
and I'm happy with the way things turned out. I'm glad that no one turned off my daydreaming when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'm glad that nobody made me behave in school successfully.
Not without attempt.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm glad I grew up between when you could hit students and when you could have them arrested, which is the best time to go to school. People are always like Gen X this and Gen X that. The best part about being a member of Gen X is you came up right between when they could hit you or when they could shoot you for being bad at school. We got that sweet spot.
Yes, indeed. And before it gets too late, speaking of the metaverse, you have some news yourself about the metaverse.
Oh yes, I'm breaking this. I just got off an interview. We started a little late. If you for some reason tuned in to YouTube and kept checking back to see if we were going to start. But I just interviewed these people who are going to be doing metaverse funerals, and it is early days. Very, very, very early days. And the analogy they used is like, we're essentially the Pong of the virtual reality funeral. And they told me their whole story. You can read about it in American Funeral Directors October edition if you'd like. But what they pointed out to me really, really stuck with me, because the obvious question is, who's going to buy headsets just to go to funerals, right? Nobody. They don't think that. They never thought that. I only thought that because I'm stupid. And they're like, well, and I'm like, oh, so I guess if I have my video game, and they're like, no. Everyone will be wearing these by 2030. This is the next thing. And this is the example that they gave. Imagine you're a company that has to send technicians all over the place. You could have a technician who could be wearing a VR headset and talking to someone who worked, the maintenance guy at the store or whatever, and have him put on a virtual headset, and you can light something up and like, okay, touch this button and draw an arrow to it. And then in the real world, they can touch that button. So they can do, for example, repairs remotely. And so things that were really, really expensive because they required technicians to fly out, you can just have the busboy do it, when he has a minute. There obviously would be a fee for that kind of thing, but thinking about it in those terms, like if they had told me 15 years ago, and I'm sure people knew about it, like, well, what you'll do is you'll just do most of your work on your telephone. And I would say, like, having phone calls, and they'd be like, well, no, there's no way you'll use it for phone calls with any kind of regularity, but you'll be able to, make movies on your telephone. And I would say, make movies on my telephone, and I know it's hackneyed now, but that's the analogy for the virtual reality in the rest of the world. And in the funeral space, the thing that they talked to me about that I thought was the most exciting is, you can build your own memorial before you die. And you can, the example I used before was, have a tour of your childhood home. You can have, if you get cremated and scattered, you can still have a burial plot that people can come and visit, and they don't have to go. And that's the thing about cemeteries in general. For many of us, not for all of us, there are some people who get a lot of comfort from going to cemeteries, and I don't begrudge them that a second. But I'm not one of them, and my mom's not one of them. And one of the things she said was, I don't want to be buried because I don't want anyone to feel like they have to come out, and put flowers on my grave, and then feel shitty for not coming out and put flowers on my grave every Sunday afternoon or things like that. There are people who get solace from that who can do that, but there are also people who are just sitting around saying, man, I haven't been to my grandfather's grave in 30 years. And I'm just the worst person. And it's like, well, no, it's just not a fun thing for you to do. And When you go to a funeral, you can change the background if it's boring. There's all sorts of, the innovation is shocking. And again, I have to reiterate that they reiterated very, very early days. So
Do
they
you
sent me.
think
Go ahead.
do you think because of the kind of like the heaviness that's involved in a funeral, that's actually a good early days first application that people would actually appreciate? People probably have anxiety about going to funerals, or can't it becomes such an event, but there's also so much around it. But that makes it easier to even like, oh, well, maybe I'll try this. Like as a general populace, maybe we'll try this because it will be easier in some ways, and thoughtful, and
Yes, and I want to answer this. All right, so business writer Tony Russo, yes, it makes things more easy and more efficient, and something that you can commit to. You don't have to worry about, is it going to rain? You don't have to plan a trip. All of those things.
Mhm.
Maniac Tony Russo,
The guy with the headband
the
on.
guy with the headband on. Some things are supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Some things,
Yep.
like, I don't, as I'm going through all of these things, it's really making me reconsider the grieving process. And I think there's a part of us that needs to grieve
Mhm.
in a very uncomfortable way.
Mhm.
There's a part of us that needs to come to terms with both our mortality and the mortality of our loved ones, and sanitizing that. And I'm not suggesting that VR sanitizes it. There are things that do sanitize it. There's, like, you can, I actually got a story pitch today that I'm not going to do. Like, you can plan and execute your entire funeral without leaving your home. And when you die, like, this company comes to the funeral, cremates you, sends your family some ashes. Have a nice day.
Oh
You
boy.
know, I think that the death process, if we're gonna have healthy relationships with our loved ones and with ourselves in the long term, we're going to have to say this person is dead and they're not here anymore, and we're gonna have to be part of it somehow. Um,
Mhm.
I know that there are people. I talked to a guy who has a viewing room for his if you want to see the embalm, if you want to see your dad embalmed, you can watch that, if that's the kind of, visceral reaction that's going to make they're really dead and
Right.
all the way dead.
Mm.
you know and so there are things that people are doing to make it easier to get closer to it, but those things also run the risk of making it more like, am I crying because Old Yeller died, but the dog didn't really die? They just pretended to shoot it, and then the dog was fine. He lived another 15 years after the movie was over.
Yeah.
And that's the bringing the reality together. And we talked about that, the difference between, he said there's, digital life, real life, and spiritual life. And those things are going to they're continually kind of melding. And that's probably going to stay the same for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody once, there was an article that said the metaverse already exists. It's just called Fortnite. But thinking about and just like how this is adopted for future generations, Fortnite maybe, but my son, who's 18 now, was very much into Minecraft. And
Yeah.
I feel like Minecraft is the metaverse, and even to the point where he downloaded it. He was a kid, he played a lot on the Xbox or whatever, and then recently now he's got a laptop, he's producing music, he's graduating high school, he meets a girl who's homeschooled, and downloads the game onto his laptop and plays with his girlfriend. So like, yeah, here's some two people existing in a virtual space that have that are building a connection that way, which is pretty foreign to us Gen Xers. I feel like,
Well, especially the part about someone who can download something onto their laptop having a girlfriend.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the weirdest part of this story you just told me.
Yeah. How are those how can those two things exist in the same person?
And that's where we're really kind of up against it, and we started a little late, and we're going to end on time for almost a change. But please, if you like the show, tell someone else that they will like it, and if you're wrong, then they'll never listen to you again. What the hell do I care? But behind that, I got nothing else to say. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right, well, remember, until next time, at the beach,
It's happy hour whenever you say it is.